What's up, my friends? Hello from Stratford, Ontario, Canada. God, I'm getting blind in my old age. Um, yes, I'm here in my own studio. And I was just thinking as I'm clicking this button that there's something so awesome about just being able to come up live and express your own ideas and interact with people and share concepts. How simple it is, like literally, this is what I'm using and a laptop. And that's a good place to start because today I've got it here, Life in Fighting For. I don't know why I called it Life in Fighting, but the basic idea of this series of live chats is lessons learned from martial arts. I've already deviated from this. It's a guide, a framework, a guidebook, a beginning point. That's it. But and I've already called one episode Life and Fighting or something else. But some of these things don't matter. Okay, we spend a lot of time. This is just a off-the-cuff piece of advice. We spend a lot of time when you're creating anything. You're a writer. You build things with your hands, whatever. We spend a lot of time planning. What am I going to do with this? How's this going to work? Bullshit. Just start doing the thing. How do you write a great song? You write 847 terrible songs, and that's how you do everything. You don't have to have the right title. You don't have to have the right lighting. You don't have to have the right anything. You just have to begin something. Anything worth doing is worth starting, right? Anything worth doing is going to be hard, and you must start immediately, and you're going to be terrible at it. This is life, right? And trust me on this. There's so many people that have something really valuable that they could do, would like to do, and are caught up in analysis paralysis. Fuck all that. Just start the process. Everybody sucks at things at the beginning. Start doing it. Today, we are lessons for life learned from martial arts. Today, we are talking about the idea of the status quo, so doctrines and dogma. What we know about martial arts and how many of the things we believe to be true are untrue or used to be true or are true for novices. And as we progress through life, they become untrue. We will apply this to our own lives. I'll do some storytelling. I had a pretty crazy weekend. And both at my job, which was super fun, and on the internet around my job, because the world's a crazy place, but it was a fascinating and fulfilling and joyful weekend for me. Learned a lot. But yes, doctrines and dogma, the things that you think are true, mandatory, that must happen, and have to be certain ways, the rules, the way that you have to act as when you're a lawyer or a banker or a broadcaster or whatever, a lot of them are horseshit. I'm just giving you the beginning of where we're going to go today, okay? If you're just joining me, this is a little overview of what we're going to play around with today. I've really enjoyed Rick Rubin's book about the artistic process, and it's very good. I highly recommend it. One of the things in there that is a sort of a foundational point for Rick Rubin and many artists, all rules must be tested. I'm a big fan of this idea. Everything you assume to be true about how it is, how to work in your garden, everything in life, the things, the structures that you believe to be true, many of them are untrue, and just a root discussion point on this. Now, if we're talking about martial arts as a tool to learn about how to buck the status quo, there are many, many myths in martial arts. And by examining how these myths started, why people believe them, and then why, when you reject them, you can actually progress as an artist or an individual, that will be useful because that will help us in real life, right? By examining this will help us in real life. And then we will take lots of questions. I told the guy to get his fucking hands off me or whatever at work this weekend. That was kind of a minor viral thing. I'm sure people will ask me about that. I have plenty of fun stories related to that. We'll do it at the end. We're going to see comments real quick. Oh, wow, cool. Hello, Carl, to China. I've been to China. It's incredible. I know you must be using a VPN right now because there's certain things you can and can't do. And I don't think you can watch a show like this on YouTube streaming in China, but thank you for hanging with me, man. It's super cool. All right, let's start. So I gave you the overview. This is what you're going to see. This is what I'm going to tell you about. This is what we're going to talk about. Now we're going to talk about it. It's very simple. My friend Daniel, he's a producer. I work with him sometimes. And he helped me. Again, all rules must be tested. So what I'm about to tell you, what I'm doing now, may be a terrible idea, and there could be a million better ones. But when I was working with him, he was like, tell him what you're going to tell him. Tell him what you told him. right? As a framework for how to set up a hang. And again, all rules must be tested. That could be a terrible idea, and it's something we're using as a basic structure. Don't fall in love with it and think that's your structure forever of how to talk or how to do a speech or how to do a podcast or whatever, because the opposite could also be great. So yes, what we're talking about today is the idea that the rules and the structures and the guidelines and sort of the box, the outline of the world that you live in, whatever that world is, whether that is your relationship world or your business world or your job or the town you live in or whatever you go to. If you follow an organized religion or you have a very structured, fitness program, anything. Some of these structures are there simply because they've always been there. So what are examples of this? If I went back in time to 1931 or whatever it was, and I told the guy who said, I got an idea. Okay, well, probably 40s or whatever, but it's a television idea. Told the guys, I got an idea. We're going to take both boxers. We're going to put a picture of them, and we're going to outline a few of their measurements. We're going to call it the tail of the tape. If I told that motherfucker that in 2024, that would still be used constantly, they'd still call it. They'd do it exactly the same thing. That guy'd fall down on his. First of all, he'd be like, "How the hell did you time travel back here?" And so that would be weird, I'm sure. But secondly, once he recovered from realizing the time travel was real, he would be like, "There's no way that for 100 years or whatever, people are going to take my dumb idea." Actually, good idea. Shouldn't call it dumb. It's a good idea. So, my idea, and it will become religion. It will become permanent or semi-permanent, and everybody will do it. Every producer, when they finish school, they will, as the thing that they do, then we'll go to the tail of the tape. It'll go in the ear. Robin, you compare the notes, and then you say, I think let's take a look how this is going to play out. If they said you travel back in time, told that guy that 100 years ago, he'd never believe you. Why? Because that makes no sense. 100 years ago, the greatest way, the only way that somebody could create a paradigm in which you examine two individuals would be come up with by some guy randomly in television. Of course, that is possible, but it's also possible that there's 50,000 other ideas that because we're trapped in this hallway, we don't even think about it. We don't even think about how else you could examine it. You don't think about different ways you could do it. You don't think about sound and light and color and texture and flavor and every other aspect of how you could do this. We now have the way, and that is the way. That's what's actually called doctrines and dogma, at least by my definition. If we look up the definition of doctrine really quickly. So we are looking up the meaning. A belief or set of beliefs held and taught by a church. That doesn't have to be a church. It's not intended to be. A statement of principle in government affairs. More definitions. Actually, they're both. Many of the primary definitions of doctrine are associated with church, political party, or other group. A belief or set of beliefs held and taught by a church, political party, or other group. Doctrine, right? So that doctrine, there are doctrines, set of beliefs in television, in banking, in gardening, in relationships, in everything, in painting. There are, why do painters paint on a exact size, board? You could paint on this. That's a painting, right? Everything is structured in such a way, not everything. Many things are structured in such a way that we are sitting there using the belief systems that have come before us. And now you don't need to reject everything, or else it's absolute chaos and you have no structure in the world. But you don't need to accept all structure that's around you, right? Now, how are we going to talk about this in life? So first of all, let's take martial arts, right? And we're going to take this at the simplest level. So if somebody's watching this and is not a crazy martial arts fan, although I don't know why you would be on my YouTube channel, I'm a weird cat, and I get pretty obsessed about martial arts, so I would think you probably are interested. But if not, we're going to keep this in such a way that implies it's easy to understand, but not condescending to people who are, very brilliant martial artists. And if you are, thanks for spending time with me. I admire your hard work and admire your progression as a great artist. If you're here with me, thank you for spending your time with me. So let's take something as simple as always keep your hands up, right? This is a belief. And in fact, if I put up a breakdown and somebody gets kicked in the head, or almost anything happens, one of the most common things where somebody's reaction is, see, something happened and I know why. And it's important that I know why because humans feel the need to understand. And they say, see, always keep your hands up. Or this is why you always keep your hands up. Always keep your hands up is a myth. It is it's dogma. We looked up doctrine. Let's look up dogma and get the exact dogma. Something considered as an established opinion. So even better, dogma, something considered as an established opinion. Always keep your hands up, pure dogma, right? At a low level, at the basic level of fighting or basic level of understanding fighting, you will say, well, I got to keep my hands up because then if something comes in, might be able to catch it. Now, okay, that's true. You might be able to catch it. So why would, if you're a novice of viewing fighting or participating in martial arts, and you know this dogma to be true, always keep your hands up. What could possibly be a reason that some martial arts master could say, I'm sorry, you actually don't understand. Always keep your hand up is nonsensical dogma. Now, what are some of the possibilities? So first thing we have to do is reject that we know. Imagine if you are been doing martial arts for 8 or 10 years. That feels like a long time. What if you did it for 40 years? You were to look back and go, wait, always keep your hands up is not true. What if you don't do it at all, but you heard on TV, always keep your hands up, and so you think that's true? First thing we need to do is go, I could be wrong. In fact, these masters, I'm not claiming to be a master, but I've studied martial arts for 45 years and analyzed tens of thousands of fights and literally 500, 700, commentated 700 live shows, thousands and thousands of fights. I'm not a master, but I have a lot of experience in these fields. I'm telling you, always keep your hands up is horseshit, right? That always, right? Sometimes keep your hands up, but always absolute horseshit. Why would somebody who, if you actually believe it to be true based on hearing it a lot, but somebody else who says, I have tens of thousands of hours of applicable knowledge, I tell you it's not true. First thing you have to do is go, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Now you open up your mind to the possibility that your belief system is incorrect and the dogma is actually something considered to be as an established opinion. It's incorrect, or a belief or body of beliefs that's also religious based. We don't need to attach things to that because that's one of many possibilities. So first thing you have to do is go, okay, wait a second, always keep your hands up. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know much about martial arts. Perhaps that's wrong. Once you do that, you're now open to many possibilities here. So why could that be wrong? Well, this happens in Taekwondo a lot. I'll show a Taekwondo video and people are like, I don't understand why they don't keep their hands up. I'll tell you the beginning, the first layer. There's thousands of reasons, but first layer. There's something called the hierarchy of defense in martial artistry. The hierarchy of defense, meaning that there is a best defense, a second best in the hierarchy system of defense, a third best, and a fourth best, or the lowest, right? The lowest, most rudimentary type of defense in the hierarchy of defense is take, okay? So I should have made bandits for that. Actually, let's do it. Take. So the lowest level of defense in the hierarchy of defense is take. So somebody's going to kick my leg and I lead, and by take, you'll take it as well as you can. So create some change in yourself, whatever possible in the last milliseconds of being hit or about to be hit. The lowest level in the hierarchy of defense is take. So maybe I'll put weight on my foot, on my leg, maybe even slightly turn it out if I can, take the leg kick, but I've improved my ability to take the leg kick. Or a punch is coming and I can't block it, and I drop my head down and I take it. I take it off the hard part of the head. That is the lowest level in the hierarchy of defense. Take a shot. Take it off the arm. Take it into the body. Take it off the thigh. Take it off a harder part of my head. That's the lowest. The second lowest, let's see if we can change this. Okay, I cannot. Can I? Yes. Edit. The second lowest form in the hierarchy of defense is block. Okay, so when we are saying always keep your hands up, we're talking about the second worst type of defense in the hierarchy of defenses. The the quality of defense you can do. The worst is take, the very second is block. So a punch is coming, or say a kick. Kick is a nice example because it's a little spicier. You can imagine it easier, but the same applies to almost any type of strike. Kick comes, and I block it. What happens when I block it? It smashes my arm, first of all. So the kick to the arm is not a block in a video game, meaning nothing happened. It means instead of getting a shin to my cheekbone, I took a shin off the small bones of my arm. There's a lot more broken arms than you realize, and a lot more arms seriously damaged because somebody was forced to use such a rudimentary level of defense. And it affects fights in ways you cannot comprehend because the fighters are so good at hiding it, and it's not sexy, so it's not discussed a great deal. But you talk to fighters at hundreds of shows. If you're as gifted as I am and you're as lucky as I am to be around it, I had 9 pro fights in the I don't know, during that time, and in the 15, 12 years, 10 years since, thousands and thousands and thousands of fights, and so. What you find in common is the damage the next day, and even the damage during, is great when you block things, right? Block something. To block a kick, we call it a check, is to take the bone of your leg or some other harder part, ideally right below the knee bone. There's a stiff, thick, rigid, but also not so rigid it would break, dense part of the shin bone. Maybe we'll take your injury out there. Oh, great, he checked the kick. Awesome. So sometimes you'll see, oh, great, good job checking the kick. You just got kicked in a different part of the leg, a better part. It's called a block, right? Somebody punches you, and yes, getting punched in the arm does damage. Getting punched in the hand, where there's all different types of martial arts: a 4-ounce glove, a 14-ounce glove, bare knuckle. I'm doing bare knuckle this weekend, bare knuckle MMA for Jorge Masvidal. I'm his commentator and his team's commentator, Dean and his. And so bare knuckle MMA. Go to block this, get punched in the hand. Trust me, getting bones to the small bones of the hand, block. Block is rudimentary, right? Block is rudimentary. Other problem with block, I'm going to discuss this quickly as it applies to Taekwondo, because that was a part where people constantly are like, why don't they keep their hands up? They don't keep their hands up because it's kind of useless. Getting kicked in the arm sucks, but also the foot and many other weapons are curved, including curving your body for a hook, and the curve around it. So when I put my hands up, I get kicked in the head anyways. No big deal. Why don't I put my hands up? Because it reduces mobility, reduces your ability. There's a lot of reductions of other skills in the act of tensing my core, connecting my hips to my lower core, to my upper body, to keep my hands up. I give up other things, more important things. So we'll continue this idea as I go into here. The next one is a better system than the second best in the hierarchy of defense. And this is how we explain why you don't always keep your hands up. That's dogma, and it's misunderstood. Dogma, something considered as an established opinion. It's not true. Don't always keep your hands up in fighting, because block is number 2. Second lowest, pretty rudimentary defense. Evade, much higher, right? Why is evade a better, higher up or more desirable in the hierarchy of defense? Because when I evade, I do not get hit. If I block, my arm can get damaged. There's actually, if you go to my Instagram and back about 10 posts, there's a really cool Muay Thai sequence. And the guy literally gets both forearms up and catches the kick across the both and essentially gets knocked out. Why? Because when you block and you get hit, if your arm doesn't break, the concussive forces still go through. Now, evade, better. Never get touched, right? So, but if I don't get touched, I've asked my body to do other things, and that can cause, you damage yourself through movement, even when you're in incredibly great shape, or sometimes when you're in too good a shape, you actually create fragility in different areas of the body. And then when you are expressing yourself in a fight, you talk to a fighter who wins a fight in 1 minute, doesn't take a shot, has some severe injuries sometimes through their own totality of commitment, right? So there are other issues, but essentially I do not take the damage from evading. Now, evade is much more desirable than block. And here is a simple, I know I go on and on. Some people enjoy that. Some people hate it. I don't care, because part of the discussion today is to find a way to express yourself honestly is the ultimate goal, right? This is part of our discussion today. But if I'm evading, I can make the giant kick miss instead of breaking my arm or taking the damage. When I put my hands down, one, I'm inviting the attack. I can see it better, but more importantly, my ability to evade, more desirable than block, increases aggressively when I do not engage my hands in this way. More ability to move, lighter, and it's not because hands are up, it's because of the connectivity of the core. So feet to the ground, legs to the thighs, lower legs to the thighs connect to the lower core connects to the upper core, we add rotational forces, diagonal chains, all of these things within our bodies. Soon as we engage our hands in this type of fighting stance, we remove some of the plasticity, elasticity, liquidity, whatever word, fancy word you want to use, but you become less mobile through the body, therefore less able to evade. And yes, you can improve your mobility when you're with your hands up, and many people do, which is why in lots of combat sports, hands up are up much more than they're down. However, there are times where we will drop our hands to evade. Now, that's one reason. Oh, sorry. While we're at it, remind me. I don't know how you're going to remind me. There's comments, but I want to add something else about evasion and about hands up and down. I'm just saying out loud for myself. An aspect of hands up and down as it relates to strategy. Said it out loud. I should remember it. The final thing on the hierarchy of defense is intercept. All right. So better than take, better than block. Evade is better than block. Intercept is better than evade. Intercept. So when I took damage. When I blocked, I changed where the damage was taken and tried to absorb some of it, even though I was taking it. When I evade, I took no damage. When I intercept, I took no damage and hurt my opponent. In the hierarchy of defense, intercept is better because I hit you before you hit me, thus breaking and shocking and interrupting your attack, therefore not taking damage, but also hurting you, meaning I gained an offensive advantage, I damaged your body, I hurt you in ways that also later minimize your ability to hurt me more, right? So intercept is the highest. Take is the lowest, block pretty rudimentary, evade higher, and intercept highest. Now, so you can see why if evade and intercept are better, are more desirable than block, and by blocking, I lower my ability to do better, quote, better things like evade and intercept. You could see from a defensive standpoint why, for a very skilled martial artist, keep having at times your hands down to improve your mobility. You improve evade and possibly intercept by reducing a more rudimentary thing, block, which is not all that great of a defense to begin with. Great, that sounds great. Another thought. So we're going back to myths. I put the front foot instead. I put always keep your hands up because it's even more rudimentary. I can touch on the front foot for as quickly as possible. And quick isn't really my strength, but I will. But another reason always keep your hands up is not true, is because what would be the reason that if I drop my hands, that could be bad? One reason, you're going to punch me if I drop my hand. Well, what if I want you to punch me? Why would I want you to punch me? Because I'm trying to elicit a behavior from you that I'm going to counter, or I'm going to use in some way, or I'm going to use strategically, or I'm going to use as a psychological tool. Sometimes, and I remember I did a seminar, very short. I was like actually doing interviewing and making. They didn't call it content then; it was just television. But Dwayne Ludwig was at my friend Jeff Harrison's gym, and he was And Dwayne, I said, Dwayne, you guys want coffee? And he goes, yeah, man, I'll take I remember some mocha with a double shot and something else. And I said, oh, get it while my guys are setting up because it's something I like to do and I like coffee. So as I'm going out, I hear Dwayne go, all right, everybody, shadow boxing. The only holes we show are holes we want to show. And right out of the corner of my ear, I'm going to get coffee now. And that's going over my head. Right. Of course, there are many times that I might do this because I want your left hand to come this way so that I can slip it and hit it. That always keep your hands up, super low level. Creating an opening so you attack, pretty rudimentary, but higher of a level of thinking than always keep your hands up, right? So something as simple as always keep your hands up, we're sure of it, doctrines, dogma, not true at all, especially for masters, right? And at different levels, as you progress, there are different reasons to not do that. Very quickly, the front foot and other myths. There's this complete horseshit story that when you're Southpaw versus Orthodox, you must always keep your front foot on the outside. Super, super novice. If it's a truth at all, it is only a novice truth. It simplifies the thinking for the novice so that, you keep it in such a way that your rear hand has a better line, right? Very novice, right? And if you're a Southpaw and I'm Orthodox and we just move this way, like nobody's going to ever move that way. We both become predictable and it's a silly little thing. It's not true, right? You start moving that way. Somebody else moves to the inside and takes the inside line. At a higher level, if you think you must always move to the outside of the front foot, somebody better than you will feast on that. It's the most base level novice half truth of all time. There's a really cool fight, Arlovsky versus Overeem. And I forget if Overeem had his right hand back or his left hand back, but I'm pretty sure it's his left, but it's irrelevant. It was open side. I think it left, and I think Arlovsky was Orthodox. Open side versus open side. And Arlovsky moved to his left, and Overeem just moved completely the other way and stuck his chin out. And if you go back and you watch, I did break down of it. UFC took down 90% of those. They would be on Fight Network YouTube. They're kind of dicks that way. It's illogical, right? People want to share this stuff, and it is for educational purposes. It's actually legal, but who knows why corporations do what they do? I'm just happy I'm not involved in that shit. Yeah, you look and he's sticking his chin out. Now, what if Overeem is putting himself directly in the line of the rear hand and the rear kick? It's a very simple strategy. If you are super novice, you'll attack, right? And which is great. Overeem wants you to attack. He knows which two attacks you're going to throw. You're going to throw your rear hand or your rear kick, and he'll kill you. If you're a little bit better or very good, like Arlovsky, you hesitate and you go, why is this guy trying to trap me? And so now all of a sudden you do very little because Overeem's doing what people don't do. Why is he doing that? I know he's not stupid. He must be trying to trap me. And it's a very, 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 fundamental psychological game and let's end on this. You think you got to keep your front foot against mine, Southpaw versus Orthodox? Well, now I know what you believe. And if I know what you believe, you're in a lot of trouble. You don't want your opponent to know what you believe. You don't want to believe doctrines and dogma and rules and structures. It's nonsense, right? So we can talk about these all day. There's comments and please leave questions, whatever. We'll get to that at the very end. This is what I have last here. Wait, the very last here I have this Q&A. So we'll do that at the end. So here we are. We kind of gone over these things. You think you believe like certain rules as fundamental as always keep your hands up are untrue. Yet you believe them. What else do you believe that is not true? You simply because it is a established opinion, untrue, but an established opinion, or whatever we called doctrines, which was a belief or set of beliefs held and taught by a church, political party, broadcasters, gardeners, whatever. Like doctrines are the things that we're sure are the things. Now, some things really are what they are, but like I said, Rick Rubin's book is great. Maybe they are. But all rules must be tested. And in the testing of the rule, as an artist, if you got things in your life that are, I don't have time to test the rules of, engine repair because my life everything has an opportunity cost and there's a strict shortage of time on earth that we all have. And I want to spend mine with my wife and my daughter and my art form and enjoying life. I do not have time to test the rule. All rules must be tested within your art form. I do not have time to test the rules of how a mechanic works. I'm going to find the best mechanic I can find that's been highly recommended. I'm going to do, if I have 7 minutes to research, I'm going to research it, take it, someone I trust who has already had a good experience, and I'm going to go to that mechanic. That mechanic is infinitely more qualified to discuss my car than I am. And I am infinitely more qualified to discuss martial arts than, a lot of people. And so, and all of those people are infinitely more qualified to discuss their area of expertise than I am, right? Don't get it backwards. We are not all equal in our opinions. And in fact, the idea of rejecting the ability to reject the forming of an opinion is so powerful. I've talked about it before. I think I talked about it in one of the first 3 episodes of this. I will revisit it again in the coming weeks. The rejection of your own opinion. And the idea that you want to debate naturally for whatever reason with somebody with 100,000 hours or 6,000 hours or 950 hours in something that you have 9 hours of internet research, reject that. It's a waste of time and you're damaging your own ability to learn. Yes, so all rules must be tested. So how does this apply in regular life? If we are going through the world trapped by the status quo, things that must be this way, always this, never this, so on and so forth, yet all rules must be tested, where it's important in life, question those things and test those things. I'm going to use, I try not to make these discussions Robin centric or, individual centric, but my own life experience is something I have to draw on. So I'm going to draw on it in this case. So this weekend, while at work, some guy was grabbing me during the broadcast, like literally during the broadcast. And I turned around and I said, or while I was actually still doing my thing to the camera at Karate Combat, which is super fun, I said, if this guy doesn't take his hand off me, he might be killed. And I was kind of half kidding. And then he put his second hand on me. I'm working. I don't know him. People shouldn't be grabbing you. Who knows what people's intent are? And I turned to him and I said, fucking get off me or whatever I said. The internet loved it. The internet's a funny place. You can do, your best work and nobody will care. And you can be wearing a crazy face makeup and then have a moment like that. And suddenly the internet will find that. For whatever reason, it's a wild place. It's hard to understand. But I got a lot of really positive responses and feedback and a lot of fun. I was flying home yesterday and I got all these memes and stuff from like crypto Twitter because there was a crypto influencer fight league. And they were clever and funny, and it actually entertained me for hours while I was on the plane. Going, wow, what a wild place! These are creative people. And of course, it's weird. I was wearing makeup. I was wearing Day of the Dead makeup because we were in Mexico, and there were hundreds of different Mexican references. And of course, I like to add color and makeup. I find to be a fun art form that is underused and provocative, and I enjoy. And so I went with this of the hundreds of possible Mexican references and respectful and loving references you can make. So now I'm wearing a crazy makeup and I got a crazy outfit, and this happens. People, of course, I understand that is somewhat out of the ordinary. But here's the weird part. When things like that happen, what you're surprised often when fun things in this case, very positive, and negative ones do too, and you have to be very careful not to have them negatively affect you. But in this case, it was super positive and fun, and people were very encouraging, and a lot of positive vibes around it. The one negative thing that would creep through occasionally, and I found myself never bothered by negativity. No, I shouldn't say never. I'm very, very rarely bothered by negativity. So over time, I've grown to kind of quite understand what it is. There's a great book called The Four Agreements. Read it. F-O-U-R, not the number 4. I think it's F-O-U-R. The Four Agreements, fantastic. But the number one, really fascinating philosophical book. But number one is never take anything personally. The reason for that is it isn't intended to be personal. Nobody's talking to you. Almost everything somebody says to you, even if it's direct to you, is generally a reflection of their life experience, what they're going through, their fears, worries, anxieties, excitements, happiness, sadness, whatever. It has very, very little to do with you. Their filter is the thing. So over time, I kind of learned that. And then I also feel grateful. And I know in the business I work in, positive and negative are almost identical when it comes to paying for a big house and building your own studio in it and taking care of your family and making more money than you ever thought you would, just sitting around talking about fighting on the internet. When it comes to those things, positive and negative are almost equal. And in fact, sometimes negative is actually better, which is why people say and do very provocative things on the internet, because when people hate them, it's actually very powerful for them and the earning and leverage and all these kinds of things. And that's real. That's real. That's 100% real. So I know this to be true. But so anyway, so here's the negative thing that I would get. Like, so 50 super positive things, people finding it funny and wild and whatever. And there'll be the odd one sneak through that's, again, reflective of other people. They're like, yeah, but, you should be more like a professional broadcaster. If you're going to act like a clown instead of a professional broadcaster, you should expect these things. And I noticed that one does bother me because I have no desire to be what anybody would call a professional broadcaster. Number one, I feel like I am, by a real definition of what a professional broadcaster is. I feel I am one. I'm quite professional, driven, organized. I'm learning all the time. I'm adding skills. I have an area of expertise. I express it in a different way. Broadcaster, podcaster, creator, whatever. I feel that I am that. What I think they're saying, though, is in the formal way through which we, this small group of people, have grown accustomed and comfortable liking. We like a suit. We like people to speak a certain way, look and talk like they may be in a bank, quite formal. So rather than and I notice this difference often. People say, the difference between Joe Rogan, I'm just using Joe because he's the biggest and awesome, and I appreciate him very much. He's done a lot of very nice things for me. He's a very good human being, very generous and kind. Somebody will say the difference between Joe Rogan and a professional broadcaster is, and I'll say Joe Rogan is more professional than most. The difference what you're trying to say is the difference between Joe Rogan and a formal newscaster or a formal talking head or a formal interpretation of how we used to share information on network television. Not professional. Joe Rogan, the guy on Twitter who makes 1,000 videos, a year, the kid who is on TikTok who's got 7 million. These are professionals. They're professional, right? But what people are often saying is, I like it formal and old, and I'm really uncomfortable with change. And so anyway, so that's what they're really saying. They're saying, I wish you would wear a suit and talk the way that sportscasters talk, because that would make me more comfortable. Here's the weird part, that idea. So I kind of did that to a degree, although I wore flashier things and I tried to add my own spice. But to some degree, when I worked primarily in television, I did do a lot of that. And I will work in television again, because television still exists, and there will be other more structured, semi-formal environments in which I will have a boss and people will say, you can't do this, so you should do that. Within those, I'll find the ways to be as creative and experimental and innovative, whatever I can do, different, try new things, artistic, whatever the word is. And if I can't do that or I'm unhappy, I have the great fortune of being able to say, no, I don't need the money, thank you, which is an incredible thing. So real freedom. So I could do that again. But once I moved, so 2017, I had a job in TV and they laid everybody off. And they laid off the digital creation department, which is wild when you think about it now, especially since, like a lot of companies did that. It wasn't just the one I worked for. A lot of companies did it. And what they did is they actually inadvertently, and nobody thought this, I certainly didn't think it, but what you inadvertently did was add to the pool. Everybody is in the same world, with the same pool of audience with which to speak to. And the most you can hope for is that you do something interesting or valuable or meaningful enough that some people will watch it. But now you're adding more people to it. As soon as you release and cancel your departments and cut your creation departments, you add more people out into the world to compete with. Suddenly, the company that I used to work for, I have a much infinitely bigger audience than they do. They didn't think of that. I didn't think of that. But anyway, so when that happened, you can start moving towards, Okay, well, I'll find another job. And I did. I flew down to Fox and I sat and had meetings and good discussions about potentially coming down and contributing. I lived in Canada, that's LA, but I was willing to do it. Different things like that. But on the other hand, 2017, you start growing your own stuff. And as you grow your own things, you make your own videos, you make 100 and then 1,000. And then suddenly you start to develop your own voice and your own individuality. And you can reject the doctrines and the dogma and the things they said never do. Suddenly you realize you can do, always, welcome the crowd first. Nobody ever fucking does that anymore. Always do a setup, like always set the stage or set the table or nobody does that anymore. Do an open. Nobody does that anymore. All of the things that were doctrines and dogma in television and news and sports in the real world, where people are actually consuming stuff made by real people, nobody does any of those things because the audience doesn't want any of that horse shit. Set the table. You don't need any more shots of the Statue of Liberty. There's a million of them. There's 30 million, 100 million on the internet. You don't need if we're in New York, you don't need shots of taxis moving real fast and a helicopter shot of the Statue of Liberty, and we're here at Madison Square Garden home. Fuck all that. That's a waste of time. You don't have time for that. Nobody has time for that. So all these doctrines and dogma go away. Also, if I was wearing a suit right now in my own home, you'd think I was crazy, right? So instead, you kind of do things your own way. Now, I didn't do any of these things. I wasn't hoping I wouldn't be successful and I wouldn't be able to buy a big house and I wouldn't be able to travel the world doing martial arts analysis the way I wanted. I was hoping that would be true, but I wasn't saying, wear your hair stupid, and it is stupid, but I like it. Right? I like it. The more people say they hate my hair, the more I realize I'm doing it for myself, not trying to get people to like it. I know they don't like it, right? And when I started speaking differently and not being a newscaster and not talking about, and to be honest, once I stopped talking about the UFC and started talking about everything else, that grew too. I don't know who's fighting in the UFC this weekend. I have no fucking idea. Or next weekend. I have no idea. I don't follow any of the MMA sites. I don't. My friend, a friend of mine was like, "Oh, I thought I would see you at UFC 2, whatever it was in Toronto." I was on vacation, right? What do I do there? I have nothing to do with that. I analyze martial arts. As soon as I got away from the story everybody else was telling, as soon as I got away from the narrative, as soon as I got away from what's next for this guy, as soon as I got away from, oh my God, breaking news. One, my life got way better. I don't want to be stuck to my thing. Or breaking news. Oh, I got to have an opinion. Sean Strickland did a thing. I got to have an opinion on it quick. I don't need to do any of that stuff. I can do whatever I want. The less I did the status quo, the more successful all of my stuff became. Now, I also got better at my work, and I learned to edit and shoot and light and all these things, but it was all really fun. And I did it my own way. This, literally, this is my thing. There's a window. I don't know if that's good lighting. I don't know, maybe. It seems to work, right? I had 750,000 people who follow me saying pink and talking poetically about interesting things. None of this would have made sense in 2019 when I didn't have all that much income, and my job I worked for a television channel that's still, when my old job went away, TSN, which is a mainstream channel, the best channel ever in the history of Canada, gave me a job. So it was a part-time job. So I still wore a bit of a suit, and but they let me do it my way. They let me make stuff my way. They let me experiment and try new things because they're cool people, and I was very lucky. So I was still able to work somewhat, but I didn't, but because I had no rules and I had no boss, and I had no doctrines and dogma, and I had no requirement to push, if you cover, say, the UFC or big events, anything that has kind of a league format or an ongoing, the UFC doesn't have a league format. It's got more of an episodic. It's like a television program, like the WWE. Same, and those structures make sense. It's good business, right? Makes sense. Get people to talk about the next thing. But if you cover those, particularly the UFC, and you do a lot of this, a lot of talking around things and using bits and pieces of martial arts to tell stories, they'll literally say, if you don't start pushing, and I don't, this is paraphrasing, and this is not absolute, but I've had friends where people got less access and even access to less events because, quote, they weren't pushing to the next event. What the fuck? I don't work for you. No journalist works for the league that they cover or the entertainment thing that they cover. But if you cover the Oscars or you cover the UFC or you cover the NFL or you cover Major League Baseball, there are rules. Now, they think these rules will benefit them, but that's still the doctrine. And maybe they're right, but it's still, they believe it would. Letting people do things their own way, breaking the rules, gave me a very successful business that's incredibly freeing. I can hang out here. If everybody left the stream right now, I would hope they wouldn't. It's cool that people hang out. I've got comments to read and questions to ask. But if nobody watches this one today, it has zero bearing on my life. If 1 million people watched it next week, that would be amazing. But that wouldn't change my life a great deal either. I now have the absolute freedom to be able to, poetically analyze martial arts, share ideas about things I've learned about, in this case, this is what we try to talk about. Lessons you learned, for life, learned through martial arts. Instead of talking about whatever middleweights are fighting in the whatever, and the winner might have how's the title picture at this, how any grown human could care about any of that, I don't know. No judgment. I'm not saying you shouldn't. In fact, that's rude of me to say that. Just because I don't understand what appeals to somebody else, they don't understand what appeals to me. So I didn't mean to be rude. In fact, it's logical that I wouldn't understand what somebody else enjoys, but I don't enjoy any of that. But this is amazing. It's amazing. I literally just get to think out loud, and and I'm thankful through the process of thinking out loud like this. New connections get made. New connections about different ways to view the next video that I play with. When I'm doing commentary for Jorge Masvidal's show this weekend, Gamebred Bare Knuckle MMA. Brendan Schaub's my broadcast partner, and Brendan and I are good friends. And we've worked together on many things of his podcast and a few other things. And we always get to work together great. And we're going to have a great time. The fights are unbelievable. And the fighting is different. The environment is different. Things that I literally got the freedom to be able to think out loud today with you will make their way into my perspective of how I watch Alan Belcher fight Junior Dos Santos in the main event. Now, my process will be different, and my filter will be different, and my job will be different, and the way that I'll view the evening will be different. But I'm not going to sit there. And one of the great things about shows like this that are so innovative and different is, number one, I'm the play-by-play guy, so I'm the Mike Goldberg or John Anik, two men I admire, in fact. And what I admire about them is their structure. I've worked with Mike. I've never worked with John outside of doing things on the internet, but I admire them both. I love their ability to create structure, because when I am partners with somebody like that, it allows me to color outside the lines. When I'm play-by-play, it may not work in a highly formal environment or an overly, something that's an overly structured environment. But in bare knuckle fucking MMA, where a visceral, not your daddy's MMA show, like something new and hard, as some people call it hardcore or like edgy, counterculture, punk rock, call it whatever you want. Hey man, the rules are different. And in fact, those, better formal or professional broadcasters, they ain't going to do as good a job as I am on bare knuckle MMA. I'll fucking tell you that, because I'm going to take the root of the job, which is, what is this job? Okay. Jorge, Dean, and the team have a product, and the product is the show. The key ingredients of the show are Alan Belcher, Junior Dos Santos, and the other 22 martial artists on it. And when they fight, amazing moments are created. My job, as I see it, is to sort of set up the audience with what they're going to see, tell them what you're going to tell them, which weird that I'm looping back to that. Tell them what you're going to tell them, set up what they're going to see so that they are like, oh, yeah, how cool is this? And if that's easy, because I'm stoked. So it's not hard to, I don't have to add any fake enthusiasm. We're talking in my head, like, we got amazing, like, strikers, and, this guy's got phenomenal TikTok. Get out of here with that. The first 100 shows you ever do, that's what you do, no matter how hard you try. In fact, the harder you try, the more you do that. This is a side, I'm talking about Jorge's show, this is a sidebar, but there is, 100 professional MMA fighters and retired MMA fighters that do commentary now. Some of them are very good. Worked with Stefan Struve a bunch of times. He's very good. And again, I'm going to get back to the Jorge broadcast in a second. One of the reasons Stefan's good is he's now done 100 broadcasts already, but he's also done them in multiple languages, so he thinks different. I love working with him. Other ones are literally doing what they've seen every other fighter do, only with this sort of enthusiasm and then using the same verbiage, and it becomes very repetitive, and it's not their fault. They're fighters, you know. If they decided they wanted to, and some of them are very good, dedicate thousands of hours to analyzing the actual gig outside of what they believe it is, which is to enthusiastically compare and contrast these guys, give a lot of compliments and say nice and explain the thing. If you look at it over time, you become good at it. But there's a lot of so I started to realize, hey, wait a second, unless I grow as a martial artist and a broadcaster and a artist and a creator and a philosopher and poet and whatever, unless I do that, there's no reason to hire me when you could hire a guy who's a light heavyweight champion and he's handsome, or a woman who is a champion and she's beautiful, or both. You shouldn't hire me if I'm the same as a fighter who's got 2 million followers and is a champion. You shouldn't hire me. Should hire me if I'm an individual. But yeah, so Jorge show, set the table, let them know what's coming. And then simply keep things making sense so people understand what they're watching, and then simply enrich the experience for the viewers. Sometimes people will say to me, and I've worked with people on the third show, and they'll be like, well, during the walkouts, we got to do this. And then, well, during the thing, it's like, are you out of your mind? These are all just doctrines and dogma. Just because everyone's always done that doesn't mean it's the best. In fact, there's a very good chance it's one of the worst choices you could make. The moment that Joe Rogan, Brendan, Eddie, Callan, and Jamie, and at different times, I've been on one of Joe's companions before, and other people do companions now, but Joe innovated it. The moment that Joe and his buddies sat around cracking jokes, smoking weed, and getting drunk with the UFC on, and more people watched the UFC through his podcast than on the broadcast themselves, the moment that happened, somebody should have stopped and said, hey, wait a second, maybe what we're doing is so old that somebody doing something new in and of itself, and of course what they do is brilliant. Joe is such an innovator, and he's such a real artist, such an honest, pure artist, that it's also because it was him, not just anyone. But most things that you think are the way that they are and have to be that way could have been changed 20 years ago. We just never did, right? And there are many, many, many things in the world like that. Many things in your world, many things in your immediate sphere that are like that. How you fucking, pick up your kid from school. Like, it doesn't have to look the way everybody else does. Everything is like this, I'm going to take some questions. I'm going to throw out a random thought that just popped into my head. But I started, when I would take a shower, I started noticing that I always go to the same spot first, and then another one, and then I moved to a different way and then I started noticing that when I would shave, I always started here, and then I always moved to the next one. And so I just started to maybe 6 months ago, just change the order every day, and what I found by doing that was I was way more present in the moment. So I was way more into the thinking, sitting right there, breathing, feeling the world around me. And I've started applying this kind of thinking to almost everything, to really be here. It's very difficult when shit's coming in on this thing, right? Very difficult when the world is, one of the great hazards of the modern era is a lot is trying to steal your attention, and your attention is you, and your focus is you, and your life is your focus. Your life is your attention and your focus. Where are you right now? Where are you? What are you doing? Is it intentional? If you are intentionally really getting something from this conversation, fucking please stay. Thank you. If you're not, get the fuck out. This, where you are and what you're doing and how you're deploying your attention is your life. Your life is made up of moments of attention, and everything has an opportunity cost. Everything. All right, let's take some questions. Oh, we got a lot of them. Here's my friend David Klonsky. After evade and distance. Okay. Number one, hierarchy of defense. Take is the lowest, block is the second lowest, evade is the second highest, and interrupt is the highest, because you not only stop the attack, but you do damage. Thank you, Brett Montbeck. What martial arts have you mainly studied? When I was a child, I studied Taekwondo. Got a black belt in Taekwondo. When I was an adult, I started studying jiu-jitsu. I stopped when I had my MMA fights, when I had a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. But I do study almost everything that I can put my hands on, and I'm now very much a generalist. Boxing, a lot of Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When I was fighting pro MMA, I studied what they now call MMA. That's a good thing for another day, is the idea that MMA is in and of itself doctrines and dogma. That's a thought for another day. Which, of course, at that time, my first fight was 2009 or 8, I can't remember, 8, I think. It was wrestling, boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai. Now, nobody thinks of it in those, no real martial arts, no 20-year-old obsessive martial artist thinks in those terms anymore. It's just stuff people use for television still. And this is not a criticism of anyone who does broadcasting, but there are really high-end wrestling world champions who talk about wrestling different than in a broadcast, and they actually talk about it in the wrestling room, because they think this is the language of MMA television, or the language of combat sports television. So they actually are saying things about wrestling in MMA that are not truthful, not because they're liars, just because they really think they have to. They think they have to say takedown defense. No true in a wrestling room, the word takedown defense does not exist. And it doesn't exist not because you don't want to be taken down, and not because striking doesn't exist, but because rather than a singular objective like defending a takedown, you have thousands of objectives: stop him, reverse him, fatigue him, get on top of him, be offensive yourself. So the idea, that's a very much a television thing. I still remember learning from years ago the concept of no absolutes. Still utilize it to learn to this day. Oh, thanks. I'm going to go back and look at that. I don't remember exactly what that was about. Absolutes. Yeah. To say absolutely no absolutes is probably redundant, but when you say you always, or you never, or most of those things are rarely true. Always keep your hands up, for example. Not true. Sometimes keep your hands up. We got more. Sorry, I was about to jump off, but thanks. Which martial art would you recommend for a 50-year-old banged up fat ass such as myself? Okay, Christopher, first of all, the martial art I would recommend is the one closest to your house. And I say that because the most important variable about your development as a martial artist is attendance. How often will you go? And most martial arts schools can accommodate, and most martial arts styles and schools can accommodate a very large person or a 60-year-old who starts. Most of them can. If you love it, and you find that a year from now you've gone 2-3 days a week and you love it, look for a place similar or different a little further, because it'll go. But for anybody, people often say, what's the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school in Toronto? I'll be like, the one closest to your house. Attendance is the most important thing, and that's true of most things in life. You have to show up. You have to show up and do it, and you'll find it's not as hard as you think. And walking in the door is probably one of the, you're very welcome, man. You're very, very welcome. I hope you do it. Like, trust me when I tell you. Now, having said all that, I bet you really like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because in your 50s, if you were, 40% body fat above, of size above what you were or whatever, and you've got a sore leg, you'll be surprised how much jiu-jitsu you can actually do. Jiu-jitsu often can be done on your back, holding something. You'll get tired, pulling the guy's lapel, but there's a lot there. And after about 5 or 6 classes, you'll be like, oh, I learned something. This is crazy. I know a tiny bit of martial arts. You can also box. You can also go, no face paint today. But you can expect face paint often when I do things. I don't know if you just joined the chat, but a lot of it was about being an individual and breaking the rules and realizing most of the rules that you think apply to you. If you don't follow them, you actually might be surprised that your life is better. I didn't do things to be you know, to be to be a contrarian. And I didn't break the rules and try not to like be you know, like everybody else because I was a contrarian. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be myself, and I didn't do it hoping to be successful. I didn't do it because I thought I would be successful. In fact, there are many periods where I'm like, God, if only I would have just played by the rules, I'd be like, working at the UFC right now or whatever. Instead, I got far enough down the scary path that I realized that would have been death for me. I would have never been as happy as I am. I'd have never been a great, ability to try to be a great learner. I'd have never progressed as an artist who I was doing things I was very proud of and hoping to get better at, where I am today. Had I, configured myself to kind of some of these, what I believed was mandatory. Instead, I traveled the world, doing amazing things. I'm super grateful. And I built this such a cool studio. I don't know if I showed you guys this. Look at this. I got like 3 custom Bruce Lees just right here. I got so many cool things in this studio that, I can come in here and work and create and I get to live like an artist and somehow get paid like a neurosurgeon, which is just shocking to me. Yeah, I am thankful. Don't believe the rule set that everyone says. Don't stay stuck in this idea. Think outside the box. There is no fucking box. It's in your mind. It's in your mind. It's true. Man, I'm so lucky and I'm so thankful. And thank you for watching. And I'm trying to do this every week or two. I'm also doing more mentality of combat with my good friend David Mullins, where we look at the emotional and psychological aspects of fighting. I'm feeling very thankful today. I'm off to Game Bred Bare Knuckle MMA this weekend. I'll do stuff. Please follow my Instagram. I'll put a whole bunch of stories and content up around it because it's an amazing show and I'm really fucking lucky to be a part of it. I love it so much. And then Karate Combat, I will see you next month again. And then the month after that in Dubai. So, oh man, so many nice things, people. Shop Stratford. Stratford's my home. I live in Stratford, Ontario, Canada. MMA halls. Love you guys. Hey, let's do a thing. Send me a message, MMA halls. Let's do a thing soon. Lots of love, everybody. I'm out heading for. I've said that now 3 times, and it says your Mac will sleep soon unless plugged into a power outlet. Oh, wait a second. I have one right here. Look at this. But like I said, certain rules, structures, things you think apply. What if I was like on a like a desk on Sports Center or something? Somehow this would be bad. When in real life, this is real life. Nobody wants to watch, not nobody, but less and less watch a overly structured thing created by a bunch of producers. And I don't hate producers. I've got a lot of good ones in my life that I work with, including my guy Thomas this weekend I love working with him. We make cool art, try new things with the Game Bred show. But in the back offices of places, executives are often really good at being executives and not good at being artists. And sometimes executives take over the art. And next thing you know, people are doing stupid shit. None of it makes any sense. And you think it's the best thing you can do. Most broadcasts you're watching are only look the way they do because people keep doing stuff people used to do and they can't think outside of it and they're unable to do it. And what I'm saying to you is, in a world where there are massive amounts of people just following what they think the rules are, even though the rules are outdated and have been for a long, long time, if you break them, it's going to be a place for you. And you think that there's safety in the middle of the pack, but all the action is out on the fringes, my friends. I'm out. I will see you soon. This has been a slice, and I'm super grateful. Much love.